Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Fantasy Football Flex podcast. This episode is Week 11 preview, and I'm your man Big Mike. And so for today, we are going to talk about last night's beatdown in Atlanta. We're going to talk through each game, and I'll go over which guys are likely to boom, which ones are likely to bust, what game scripts we could expect to pan out. And then I'll tell you some starts and sits and guys I really like this week to finish it off here. So let's dig in here. Thursday night game, New England at Atlanta. A lot of people had Mac Jones as this sneaky sleeper, sneaky streamer. I wasn't buying into it. I didn't think New England would have to throw the ball to win this game, and I was right. He was perfectly content taking things underneath, handing the ball off to their really three-headed monster now with Stevenson, Harris back, and Bolden as their passing down specialist. The defense is dominant, and on the flip side, that Falcons team is as bad as I thought I said they were in last episode, right? They're 4-5 now, 4-6 record isn't quite as illustrative as to how bad they really are. They need a complete overhaul. I mentioned Matt Ryan and his prime being very much in his past, and I mentioned how bad this O-line really does suck. And so expect some major changes there in the offseason. And the game was kind of boring, to be quite honest, but maybe not so much for me. I own the New England defense, special teams, and Nick Folk in both of my leagues. So it's actually kind of nice for me to sit back and relax and see my kicker and defense give me a combined 43 points on Thursday night. And it makes me want to touch a little bit on how I actually pick defenses and kickers, because first of all, I never draft a kicker, and my last pick of my draft is always my defense, but somehow, magically, by the end of the year, I always get a top 5 defense and a top 5 kicker. And so I see continually, year after year, I see people drafting defenses in the 8th, 9th, and 10th rounds, and kickers in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th rounds, and the rankings are almost always wrong here. You know, why take Justin Tucker, number 1 ranked kicker, year after year, in the 10th round when there's still some position guys, sleeper position guys like Michael Pittman's and Michael Carter's and James Conner's and guys like that available that you could be stashing on your bench, right? Why take a defense, a high-ranked defense like the Rams defense, which I saw go super early, when lo and behold, Patriots defense, which was drafted much later, if drafted at all, is now your second-ranked defense. So I was able to get both these guys on the waiver wire, not have to spend any draft capital. And so that's my approach. Defense is always my last pick of the draft. I draft for week 1, and then I stream. I'll stream defenses based on matchups until I find one like the Patriots defense that's coming on later in the season and has it, could get me to the playoffs and help me through that playoff push. And kickers, I never draft a kicker. I'd rather stash a bench guy, an up-and-coming rookie. I think this last year my big stash guy was Terrace Marshall, who didn't pan out, but at least when I had to drop him right before the game started week 1, at least I was either going to be able to bid on him again if he blew up, or if I really liked it the way he looked, or I at least made somebody else have to go bid on him, as opposed to giving them a free shot at drafting them. So, and when I look at kickers, I always think about extra offensive possessions is one thing. So which team is going to handle situations like the end of the first half really well? We saw like New England do this, right? Mac Jones and that offense got the ball back under 2 minutes and was able to get into field goal range and get an extra field goal, I think a long field goal. And so I know Belichick coach teams and certain well-organized teams are going to be able to execute these and get extra offensive possessions in order to get kickers extra opportunities. The other thing I look at when I'm trying to pick a kicker is teams that are going to win the game, right? You want a team that's going to be up later in the game, so if they get the ball in the field goal range, they're actually going to kick a field goal, versus a team that's losing late in game, they get the ball in the red zone, they're going to go for it on fourth down and cost you a chance at points. So just some tips on picking defenses and kickers that I wanted to go through, because man, it's a lot easier to win weeks when your kicker and defense give you a combined, not even a 43 point. That's kind of ridiculous. But even if they give you a combined 25 points, right now, all of a sudden, if your stud receiver or running back only gives you 10 or 12 points, it's not the end of the world. You have some wiggle room there to still have a solid week. So Thursday night, fun for me, maybe not for everyone else, certainly not for Atlanta and Falcons fans. But yeah, now we'll move into looking at this Sunday's and Monday games. We'll start off with New Orleans at Philly. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game than most people think. I think people still have this image in their head of a high flying Saints offense. It's not who they are anymore. It's more of a conservative passing game, run first offense. But we have Trevor Siemian coming up, and maybe he's going to be able to change that. We never know with Sean Payton. I think Siemian is a sneaky good streamer this week. You heard it here first. He's been getting incrementally better week after week. I think we could see another 20-point week out of him, and you're getting this guy for free. So I think when it comes to the flip side, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, they're going to have to throw to win the game. I think it's going to be a back and forth, low scoring game, but definitely the Eagles are going to have to throw to win. I don't think they could run it against New Orleans' elite run defense. And so Hurts will likely get you 20. I'm not a huge Hurts fan. I don't think he's going to be the next Jackson or Mahomes or Prescott or anything like this. So he'll probably give you his 20. He'll supplement his inability to push the ball through his legs. And I think Devontae Smith is the only other guy on the Eagles that I would think about starting. He's probably going to have a good week. He'll continue his trend and he'll get fed. And they're going to have to. The other thing, like I said in the last episode, the Eagles are very opponent specific when it comes to what type of offense they're going to come out and playing. If their opponent sucks at the run, they're going to line up and run it. If their opponent sucks in the pass, that's what they're going to do. I think with New Orleans, they're not going to be able to line up and run it against them. So you're going to have to see them moving the ball through the air and those receivers making plays. Back to the Saints, Alvin Kamara is questionable, so keep an eye on this. But if he plays, I think he could really boom. Again, I think that the Saints can lean on their defense, make Philly a bit one-dimensional, and use Kamara in the run game and the screen game and pick up yards and points that way. My one sit this game is Dallas Goedert. He's been out with concussion, and he's got a tough matchup. The Saints just don't give a lot of points to opposing tight ends. I think if Philly moves the ball through the air, it's going to be primarily through the receivers. All right, next game is Miami at the Jets. So Tua is a sneaky good start here. I think if there ever is a time to start Tua, this could be the game. He's got a bit of a track record playing well against bad teams. You got to start somewhere. And I'd also want to call out Jalen Waddle as a potential boom player. I think I have him on my starts list for this week as well. If you're looking for that wide receiver 2 or flex position, and you need a bit of a Hail Mary, I think Jalen Waddle could be in a boom position for you this week. And then on the flip side, the Jets, I think you have to really limit expectation. I don't know many. If you're really leaning on the Jets offense to score you points week after week, I feel bad for you and your team. But I think Michael Carter stays relevant, really due to his pass game usage. And then Elijah Moore, if you stashed him, I think it's another week to keep him on your bench. But he's not. He doesn't exude really and promote feelings of stability in terms of my mind yet. So I don't think he's quite startable week to week, but keep him stashed. I think there'll come a time either later this year or next year where he becomes startable. All right, next game is Washington at Carolina, or the Ron Rivera Bowl, if you will. So this is an interesting matchup, right? We have a shaky defense in Washington and a shaky offense in Washington versus an elite defense in Carolina and a shaky offense in Carolina. So I think this game is a bit closer than people anticipate. I think some folks are expecting Carolina to come out and win in blowout fashion like they did last week. I don't think that's what exactly happens here. I think it's a bit more of a low-scoring game. I think Cam Newton, I mean, your guess is as good as mine in terms of how he's going to come out looking. They said he's a starter, but P.J. Walker will still play. I don't know exactly what that means. I would be hesitant to throw him to the Wolves and start him on my fantasy team. And in my teams, I have Matt Stafford, so I'm looking for a quarterback to stream. And so I've definitely thought about Cam Newton, but and you guys know I'm a bit of a Cam Newton hater, so I'm gonna just put a pin in him right now and use this as a learning moment and a wait and see moment, and not necessarily risk my week on him quite yet. With that said, I think Christian McCaffrey should go off. I think this Washington defense is, nothing to write home about, and so CMC is in a sweet spot right here to go off. DJ Moore as well, I think, could do really well in this game. And then on the Washington side, I don't think you should start Heineke. I have Mclaren on my sit list. I think Washington and Heineke will have to throw to keep up in this game. But I think due to that lockdown nature, that Carolina defense, I wouldn't trust Terry McLaurin this week. I liked him. I actually drafted him in one of my leagues, and I've been able to work around that. But I also drafted him as a wide receiver 2, not a wide receiver 1, and so I think, he's been a bust, and I think you have to go elsewhere. So. I also think with that Washington running back situation, your guess is as good as mine. I think if this stays close, we'll see Gibson grind it out. And I think starting the game, that is going to be Washington's strategy, to just play the time of possession and stay on the field, keep that defense honest. But if things start to get away from Washington in the second half, that's when you're going to see J.D. McKissic come in the game and be active in that passing attack. So it continues to be an ugly, murky committee there in Washington at the running back spot. All right, next game, Indianapolis at Buffalo. I think Buffalo defense should come out and dominate. I think if Buffalo gets an early lead, you guys better watch out because it's going to force Indy to do what it does worst on offense, which is throw the ball. I think if it stays close and Indianapolis can lean on that run game like they love to, then it's going to be a much brighter day for Indianapolis as a whole. But if they get behind and that game script flips negative and they have to push the ball through the air, I think watch out. It's gonna be trouble for that entire offense. Buffalo, I think it's a good, not great day for Josh Allen. I don't know if he's going to really need to be the man and do it all this game to win. That said, I think Stephon Diggs is going to have plenty of opportunity to feast in this weak secondary of Indianapolis. I think Wentz has a better day than last week. Even though he's playing a better defense, there's going to be more of a need for him to push the ball. So just temper your expectations for Indianapolis skill players, particularly folks like Michael Pittman. If you're strolling him out there to be a stud wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 for you, he might be more of a flex play, wide receiver 3 type this week. I don't know who else from that passing skill position, that receiver position for Indianapolis that you'd be starting, but kind of pump the brakes on Pittman. I don't know if Taylor goes off for 30. He might come back and look human this game. Wentz will probably have a bit of a better day than his 11 or some odd points that he gave you guys last week. Still probably not a starter in my opinion. All right, Detroit at Cleveland. This is going to be an interesting game. I think both teams try to force the other team to beat them through the air. So expect Cleveland and Detroit to come out and load up against the run. I think that's a great strategy for Cleveland. I don't think Goff is going to be able to beat them through the air. And with that said, I think Hawkinson will have a bit of a bounce back because of that added pressure and that added need to throw the ball. I think DeAndre Swift stays relevant because of his utilization in that passing game. Maybe pump the brakes on some of his expectations as well, because we have Jamal Williams returning for Detroit this week and could steal some of that early down and goal line work. I think the big X factor here is Baker's health. If Baker's fully healthy, I think he does enough to where he can keep teams honest and not allow them to stack up against the run. But I don't know if he's going to be able to do that this game. Nonetheless, I think towards the end of the game, it's going to be close. Cleveland's going to be able to carve out a lead and then grind it out with Chubb on the ground. Good chance he finds the end zone this week as well. Maybe even pops a big run. So Chubb is a stud this week. Fire him up as you normally would. All right, San Francisco at Jacksonville. I think this is a lower scoring game than most people might think. That Jacksonville defense has been improving, particularly their pass rush and even their run defense. So San Francisco won't have to throw to win the game here, but mainly because San Francisco defense should be able to handle that Jacksonville offense no problem. So they're not going to really. Yes, Jacksonville defense will cause some problems and will prevent this from being a blowout. But because of how bad that Jacksonville offense is and how good San Francisco defense has looked, particularly after last week, I think this stays low scoring and San Francisco can keep it on the ground, ride Mitchell, give it to Kittle and Debo on third downs, give it to them with some safe passes and let them work and get those yak yards, and they'll be just fine. So fire up your Niners as you would, Kittle, Debo, and Mitchell. I don't think. And then from Jacksonville, the only guy you might consider starting is Dan Arnold. I've been kind of touting him a bit lately. I think he'll see his targets. He'll have a safe floor, but temper your expectations here. I don't know if he finds the end zone this week. He might give you that 6 to 10 points. So if that's all, if you're scraping the bottom of the barrel on tight ends, you could do worse than Dan Arnold even this week. But I do like him longer term. So again, if you picked him up, maybe you have a better option this week, but keep him in your arsenal. I don't think he's worth dropping. All right, Houston at Tennessee. This one has blowout written all over it. Again, here Tennessee shouldn't have to throw the ball to win this game. So Deontay Foreman and Adrian Peterson should eat all day. Tannehill might take advantage of playing a bad team and give you 20, 25 points. If he's out there on your waiver wire, it might be worth, and you need a quarterback, you might be worth grabbing. And even if you have him on your bench, if you have if you bounce between two quarterbacks, and this might be a decent week to throw him out there. Again, he might take advantage early, get a couple of touchdowns, and give you that 20 points that you're looking for minimum out of your quarterback. Houston will have to throw to just keep up. So if you have Brandon Cooks, I would fire him up this week. I'm not still 100% sold on this Tennessee pass defense. I think run defense, they've shown so much more promise than in their secondary. So look for Cooks underneath and look for him to be fed often. So fire up Cooks if you have him, I'd say. And then Green Bay at Minnesota is next. This should be a good game. I think this could be the game of the week. It should be back and forth. It's a divisional rivalry. I think there's going to be points all over. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a shootout, but I could see upper 20s, low 30s here for both teams. I think you fire up your Vikings, Cook, Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen, as you normally would. Recently, we see Tyler Conklin blocking Thielen a bit in the end zone. I think that could change this week. I think we could see Thielen get back in there. He's a bit touchdown dependent. But I still like Conklin. I mean, again, it's a dice roll, but I see, Conklin getting fed. That trend's going to end eventually, right? It's going to swing back the other way. So I like Thielen as a potential, his potential to score a touchdown this week for you. On the flip side, in Green Bay, you could expect Rodgers and Adams to eat. And I think my start of the week here is A.J. Dillon. I think, we've been waiting to get this kid a shot since he was drafted a couple years ago. There was the whole drama last year around, do they sign Aaron Jones back? They don't want to pay Aaron Jones. When are they going to hand the keys over to A.J. Dillon? Well, those of us who are Dillon believers, this is his chance to shine. I think if you've stashed him on your team or handcuffed him to Aaron Jones, like, this is the situation you've been waiting for. So go ahead and fire him up with confidence. All right, next is Baltimore at Chicago. There's some major questions I think I have for both teams here. I'm going to be looking forward to learning about both of these teams in this matchup. My first big question is this Baltimore defense. I think Baltimore defense has a bit of a stigma around them about being a good defense, right? Think about the pedigree of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, and even in the not so distant past, C.J. Mosley, Terrell Suggs, Jimmy Smith, Matthew Judon, right? So we kind of have this mental image of Baltimore defense just always being good. And granted, they do have a great defensive coach in Martindale. But I think this team just hasn't developed yet. They have Patrick Queen, young middle linebacker. They have I believe a rookie. I forget his name, but he's super quick. His name's Omama or something like that. Super fast, super athletic. You see him getting and rushing the quarterback a bit here. And I think they just need time to gel and develop. And of course, they have injuries all over the field, including on that defense. So not 100% their fault, but this is kind of out of character for them to have questions around defense. So we'll see. I think that's a big question mark. I think some people are looking at this to be a major blowout, and I don't necessarily see it that way. I think obviously Baltimore is the clear favorite, but I think if you look at a lot of Baltimore wins even this year, they've been very close games, the majority of the game, and then Baltimore ends up breaking loose at the end. And I think this follows that same script, to be quite honest. And then on the flip side, there's major question marks around the Chicago offense, particularly coming off of a bye. I don't trust Matt Nagy to have his ducks in a row and have his men ready to go after a bye week. Like some coaches and some teams, after the bye week, they're coming off on fire, well rested, buttoned up and ready to go, extra week of practice and all that. And other teams, they come off their bye looking sloppy and rusty. And I don't know what we're going to expect. I don't know what to expect to see out of the Chicago team. Are they going to be rusty, or are they going to be refined and ready to go? And I think Justin Fields has done a great job. I see consistent incremental improvement week after week, and I just hope the bye doesn't get in the way of that. And so Baltimore wins, obviously, but do they win early and enough for Chicago to have to abandon their run game early on? I think this is the big question mark for me, and I don't think that Baltimore defense is good enough. We'll see again them coming out of a bye what they're going to look like. But I don't think that Baltimore defense is good enough for Chicago to completely have to abandon their run right away. So if you have David Montgomery, I would throw him in there. I think Baltimore defense, that run defense has been a particular weak spot for them. And I think this Chicago offense, if they're smart, which is a tall ask for Nagy, if they're smart, they come out with featuring Montgomery as the centerpiece of their offense, similar to how Najee is used in Pittsburgh. So if you have Najee start him, he could be the focal point of that offense. I don't think they have to abandon the run that quickly in this game to cost him any major points. So I like Monty. And of course, on the flip side, if you have Lamar Jackson, you're going to start him. If you have Marquise Brown, you're going to start him. So that's that. Next game is Cincinnati at Las Vegas. So we have a potential shootout in the making here. I think Cincinnati is going to see major points in the air with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I like their tight end C.J. Uzomah as a potential sneaky sleeper streamer this week. And of course, I think Joe Mixon is going to get fed, and they've been doing a great job utilizing him in the screen game and the passing game. He's kind of this true workhorse and a major factor. So fire up your Bengals with confidence this week. On the Oakland side, I think guys like Waller, obviously, you're going to start, even though he's had a bit of a disappointing season. And I tell you guys not to waste early round picks on tight ends. If you did, you're going to have to fire him up, and he should have a decent week for you. Derek Carr could be a good sleeper here as well. I always like his value. And then I think Hunter Renfrow is probably the receiver to take on the Oakland side, especially in PPR formats. He could give you, 13 to 17 points, I think, in PPR. And then Oakland running backs, I think this is a bit of a quagmire situation here. I actually think it seems to be they're using Jacobs more for early down work, and Kenyon Drake is a bit more of the passing down back. And in a potential shootout, I think Drake would see more work just in the passing game. So potentially limited in production from this Oakland running back committee. All right, Arizona at Seattle. So Arizona is without DeAndre Hopkins this week. I think a big question mark here for Arizona is the health of Kyler Murray. Of course, it's an ankle injury. So for a super mobile quarterback like him, that could play a major factor in his ability to perform. Seattle, they should bounce back a bit after kind of an embarrassing performance last week against Green Bay. So I think you'll see Russell Wilson and that Tyler Lockett connection improved. I think the game script here keeps Seattle passing, so really limit your expectations for Alex Collins and any of the Seattle running backs. And then I think on the flip side of that, I think James Conner gets in the end zone again, so fire him up. I think there's been some interesting tape I watched on Eno Benjamin. He's got some kind of cool highlights. I was keen on this guy as a rookie. I'm curious to see how he looks in this game. So that's one player I'm going to be looking at is Eno Benjamin. With Chase Edmonds being out, he has an opportunity to kind of come in more as a passing down back, more of a lightning to Connor's thunder. And so just keep an eye on him. I don't think he's worth stashing yet, but he could be, depending on how long Edmonds is out. All right, Dallas at Kansas City, another potential shootout. Getting to a few shootouts in a row here. I think the big question mark here for me is Dallas defense for real? They've looked mediocre in the past few games, and then last week they looked elite. So, and earlier in the year they looked elite as well. So we'll see what we get here. I think it's going to be their ultimate test to date. So that's one aspect of the game I'm going to be looking at. But I think in terms of starters for Dallas, you got Dak, you got Zeke, you got the receiving core, CD, Amari Cooper. I think the interesting player here on the Dallas offense to watch is Pollard. Again, if this game script goes pass happy in PPR formats, Pollard might give you some good points here if you're in a pinch at running back. And then on the flip side, Kansas City, you're going to start Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey. There's going to be major points to go around. I think the Kansas City running back situation is something to be mindful of. CEH is likely to return this week off of IR, and if he does, that ugly committee that I warned about last time could be coming to fruition here. I still think D-Will is going to be, get the lion's share of volume this week, especially if this game script goes pass heavy. So you might, for those who picked up D-Will and been riding them, you might get one more week out of them. But just a situation to monitor when you guys watch this game. All right, next is Pittsburgh at the Chargers. So most of Pittsburgh games are lower scoring. We're looking at mid-20s to upper 20s in terms of points per team. I don't think it's any secret that the Steelers' offense runs through Najee Harris. That Chargers' defense has not been particularly good against the run. So that's a recipe for Najee going off again. Love this dude. So happy I have him at least in one of my teams. Provided great value, and is the newest and brightest workhorse in the league. I think a guy like Justin Herbert, which you probably spent some good draft capital on, is going to have a frustrating day, but I think you're going to have to ride with him. Unless you want to try to get cute and start a guy like Carr, or somebody else you might have been able to pick up off waivers. I think you got to go with Carr. He's probably got the highest floor of your options here at quarterback if you did draft Herbert. And he should get you your 20 points. I'm not expecting a 30-point game out of him, but he should get you your 20 points. And I think it's hard to trust these Chargers skill guys this week. Mike Williams has been invisible the last few weeks. I think Jared Cook, they've been spreading the ball around to some different tight ends like Parham. So he's hard to trust. And then, Keenan Allen, he's going to get the underneath stuff. He's going to act as that slot guy. So maybe in PPR he's a bit better, but it's hard to trust him as anything more than a flex guy, especially in this game. But I would fire up Eckler as a solid running back to this game. He should eat. He should get his points on the ground and through the pass game as well. All right, last game is the Monday night New York Giants at Tampa Bay. I'm glad to see the Giants have a national stage to be embarrassed on. This is really great for Giants fans. I look at this as the Brady revenge game for those 2 Super Bowls that the Giants stole from him. And so expect the Tampa Bay Bucks to feast, particularly a guy like Fournette. Again, if this game gets away from New York, they're going to ride Fournette during the second half. I think Gronk finds the end zone in his first game back after taking some significant time off due to injuries. And then Mike Evans is the really most healthy receiving option and best receiving option for Tampa Bay. So expect them to feed him and get him a ton of volume here as well. And of course, Brady, if you drafted him, you're likely going to continue to start him. I think on the Giants side, I wish I could say there's guys to start here, but I wouldn't want to start any of them besides maybe if you drafted Saquon in the first or early second round. I think you have to stick to your guns here and start him. He should be back. We'll see what kind of volume he gets, but he's versatile enough to where they hopefully use him in the passing game, screen game, and get him some underneath stuff because it's going to be a negative game script for the Giants. So that's what we have looking into Week 11. Just a kind of quick recap here. Some guys I love this week that maybe aren't your regular everyday starters. I think does it really help you guys for me to say, I love Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams this week? It's like, no shit. Of course you're going to start them. But some guys that are maybe, you're debating over that I really love. Of course, if you want to see my full list, follow my Instagram at NFL.flex, Facebook, NFL.flex, or you can check out my new website, NFLFantasyFlex.com. Has my full list of starts and sits, but just a few guys I want to call out here. Of course, A.J. Dillon, your patience with him paid off. Hunter Renfrow, Jalen Waddle, Pratt Freiermuth, who I didn't mention in talking about Pittsburgh game. I really like him this week. Super talented young tight end, and I think that Pittsburgh Chargers game is going to be back and forth. I think there's going to be situations where Pittsburgh needs to throw the ball in order to win, pick up third downs, and so I like Pat F there to be a solid streaming tight end option for you. And then C.J. Uzomah on the Bengals. I think he's another good streamer tight end. It's super hard to predict when he pops off, but when he does, it's a 20-point week. And I think he's due, and he's got a nice juicy matchup against in a likely shootout. So if you're a betting man, which I think we all are for playing fantasy sports, then C.J. Uzomah could be a sneaky ad for you if you're in a pinch at tight end. Some guys I hate this week, Zach Moss on Buffalo. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game. That Indianapolis front seven is pretty darn good, and so I think they're going to be using a bit more Devin Singletary to the outside in the passing game. So and the Bills never really run the ball that much anyway. So limit your expectations for Zach Moss. I think if you want to start a Buffalo running back, Singletary is probably your guy. I think we also saw Matt Breida get work last week. So this kind of quickly devolved into a three-headed monster. So maybe it's better we all just stay away from this Buffalo backfield. Terry McLaurin, currently bust of the year in my opinion thus far. Stay away from him against that Carolina elite defense. He's going to have Stephon Gilmore and Deontay Jackson and all these guys all over him all day. He might make some freakish catch here or there, but man, it's hard to trust him these days. Dallas Goedert on Philly against that New Orleans defense, just a bad matchup. Even though Philly receivers might eat, I don't think Goddard's going to be included in that. Jared Cook facing an elite Pittsburgh defense. We know they spread the ball around some other tight ends too. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of points to go around in this game, so limit your expectations there. And then I think Michael Pittman on the Colts here. I think limit some expectations there. I think the Colts will have to throw the ball a bit, but again, when they're playing this Buffalo defense, he's going to have Tre'Davious White on him, and so good luck, my friend. All right, so there you have it. A glimpse into the future here for Week 11. I will talk to you guys on Monday or Tuesday with the Week 11 recap, where we could see how wrong I was about all my predictions. In the meantime, please give me a subscribe, and please give me a follow on Instagram. Give me a like on Facebook. Check out the website. If you guys have any constructive feedback, I'd love to hear it. Just please be respectful. And I'll be on Instagram. So if you guys have any start or sit questions here for the week, just let me know. And thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll catch you in a few days here. Wish you all the best for Week 11. Take care.